Greetings, folks. Welcome to another episode of Mysteries Unlimited. For those who may not know, my name is Thomas Marcum. I founded the Crypto Crew, and I'm one of the hosts here on Mysteries Unlimited. If you have trouble hearing me, or you like looking at my big mess in the back, just let me know. That's all my packing supplies junk. But anyways, I feel like we got a pretty good show for you tonight. I've been out most of the day today, out in the mountains, ginseng hunting. And I don't know if you can see it, but I got a stick poked me in the eye. Kind of made a place. But other than that, I had a good time. But tonight we're going to be talking about Bigfoot, of course. And we have Leo, of course, our co-host, who is very knowledgeable about Bigfoot. And also we have Stephen on with us again tonight. Who is also very knowledgeable, and he's had several experiences. But anyways, I'll go ahead and bring Leo in, and I'll make sure he's coherent and and ready to go. Hello, Leo, are you there?
Somewhat coherent, my friend.
I can't hear you, mate. I can't hear you.
Oh no, that's not good.
Hit it with a hammer or something. I can't hear you. Hello? Hello, is this thing on?
Well, the mic's not working.
You must have something flubbed up, man. Ouch. Oh. Are you working on it? Okay, all right, good deal. Tonight's a special episode. Leo will only be nodding yes and no. It actually shows your microphone is plugged in now, but I don't think I can hear you yet.
Yeah, I don't know what's going
on. Oh no, you have technical support, I see. We also have Stephen waiting in the green room. We will bring him on here in just a little bit after Leo gets his audio working. Leo, do you think you need to go out and back in? Okay. All right. Just jump out if you want to, and we'll get you back in here in a few minutes. Okay. Okay. Let's get my big mug off of here. And while Leo is getting his stuff ready, I will go ahead and bring on Stephen and see how he's doing tonight. Make sure he is not inebriated or anything like that. Hello, Stephen.
Hi, how are you, Thomas?
Hey, I can hear you now. Let me turn you up just a little bit so I can hear you.
Okay. I'm in the
How
dark.
are you this afternoon?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Other than tired, I'm okay.
Good. Yeah, you've been active.
I need to be.
Yeah.
Covered about, I don't know. Well, let's see. It would be, that's the good thing about the Fitbit. It tells me basically how far I went. I've covered a little over 11 miles today, so I did pretty good for an old guy.
That's a good hike.
Yeah, it's very hard. Where I went to today, they had done some logging about 2 years ago, and to get to where I actually wanted to go, it's about a 2-mile walk through some high weeds and stuff. But there's a little creek there, so I got in that creek for easier walking and chance you might find some ginseng or a track or
sure.
deer track, a few elk track, things like that.
Are your waterways all filled with stone too?
Oh yeah, lots of rock.
Yeah, ours are paved like with cobblestones. People take the stones out because they're smoothing around. They take them out and they put them in their gardens.
Well, here where this is at, there's actually a road about, I don't know, maybe a couple of miles you have to drive in on a gravel road. And one of the big tiles is washed out on it, a culvert. So you have to park even farther away and walk.
Right.
There's actually a cemetery there, and they're supposed to keep the road open and accessible to the cemetery, but they're not doing it. But, you can't, what can you do? They're only a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah.
They can't be bothered with us peasants. Looks like Leo is actually back in the green room. Let me see if I can bring him on and see if we got any sound from him, okay?
Certainly.
All right. I'm going to hide you just for a second, okay?
All right.
Okay, Leo, let's try it again.
Any luck?
Oh, hey, I can hear you now.
Didn't change anything. Closed it and came back in.
Buddy, it's technology. That's the way it works nowadays. Computers and drugs are going to take over the world, and I think the computers are winning right now.
I didn't miss anything good, did I?
No, I was just talking to Stephen. We was talking about how they're where I went ginsening today. The roads washed out and things like that. How are you this afternoon?
I can't complain. I could, but I mean, it does no good.
If you can't complain, man, you must be doing good, living the
Oh
dream.
no, I could complain, but right place, right time.
What I've done tonight, Leo, I've just got a few simple topics for us to talk about, and if you have anything specific you want to talk about, we can. I mean, that's cool with me. I don't care to talk about it. But before we actually get into the show, we want to run just a small promo for everyone, and maybe alert you to something where you can help us out a little bit. Maybe is it going to work? Maybe it's not going to work. Okay, let's try it again. Nope. It never works when you want it to. Okay, well, we'll try another way. But anyways, Leo, tell us a little bit about your day and what was going on. What have you done all day?
Well, today I haven't done anything that you want to hear about. It's been a horrible day. I couldn't sleep last night. Had to catch up on.
Oh, have you froze up on us? Leo's having some issues again. Hey, come back, Leo. Don't leave me. Okay, Leo, you may have to go in and back out again. Out and back in again, rather. So we will turn back to Stephen. Boy, the bugs are working good tonight, Steve.
I see that. That's funny. But you never know. And a lot of times it just has to do with, your access to bandwidth.
Yeah. I think that laptop Leo uses too. I think he's had some issues in the past with it. So,
well, anything that's over 18 months is getting old or pretty much getting towards being obsolete.
Well, I just ordered a new PC. It was supposed to ship out on August the 15th. But of course, they're having a hard time finding the parts. So now it's supposed to ship out on September the 15th.
Right.
And I ordered it direct from HP. The Omen, the new. That's what I've been using. This is what this laptop is the Omen, and I have a desktop I use. It's an Omen. It's been real good. So I thought I'd just upgrade because when I do my video editing, I noticed that I'm starting to get some slowdown and pause.
Right.
Stuff like that. So I thought I'll just go ahead and buy a new one. Well, I'm still waiting.
Yeah, it's kind of strange, the whole thing about automation. It was the old 16-bit systems way on back when, the old dot systems, the old
Dot matrix.
Yeah, before, and all that stuff that back in the 1980s, and of course that stuff was what put people on the moon.
Sure, yeah.
And
we still use them in our when I had the video stores. We used the dot matrix printers and all that kind of stuff. Wasn't no big fancy printers that we could use.
Oh, crazy! But back when you could write code yourself right on your computer, now it's like,
yeah.
Unless you have special programs or apps, you can't get into that stuff.
That's true. Yeah. Well, as Leo's working on his getting his machine lined out, we'll go ahead and start the show, and we're going
Sure.
to talk about Bigfoot. If you've got any specific topics you would like to talk about, that's fine. I have a few wrote down myself or typed out, I guess.
I'll let you lead. Yeah.
Okay, well, we always like to start off talking about the Patterson footage. That's, of course, that's the most famous uh, footage or well known, I suppose.
It is. It's the Grail lore.
For sure. Well, just give us some of your thoughts about it. I'm sure you probably think it's legitimate as well.
I'm a believer.
I think it's a legitimate footage.
So I can't even listen to people who try to pick it apart and tear it down because I'm just a believer in it. I know there's a whole background of issues and problems with the gentleman involved, but at the same time, even though that particular day they were the only two there, some other famous people had been there just a few days before that, and then other famous people came along momentarily afterwards to help them, and you never see their testimony of what they saw and what they came across. But the fellows that were there before were convinced that there was a Bigfoot there, or a Bigfoot family there, a clan. And the only reason why they left the area was because they had other things set up to go do research in other places, and they had jobs to return to, and so they did. But Patterson and Gimlin just drew that lucky card of being there that particular day alone.
Well, my understanding too is that the footage was, I mean, he was almost out of film.
Yeah.
If it had been another day, he probably wouldn't have had film to even got the footage. He wouldn't have been.
No, he was making. He was using what film he had, and he was making B footage. So because he had every intention of making a movie, he had written a book the year before.
Yeah.
And he was kind of, he was thinking about, well, why don't I take the book and put that on film? And so he was kind of thinking about doing that. So he was just getting, not video footage, but
B-roll,
16 millimeter or whatever it was, or was it?
Yeah.
Whatever the film was that he was using, whatever the camera was, so that he could put that together and then put the narration in afterwards.
Well, I always thought it was odd that there have been several people over the years that claimed they either made the suit or wore the suit, but they've never been able to produce the suit. And they always want to tear down Patterson's character, which maybe at times his character could be in question, but I think the footage pretty much speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think it does. He was a character, and all those things that they say that that they talk about those guys being involved in the rodeo, and being rodeo clowns and in the pit, helping in the pit and everything. I mean, it takes a great deal of fortitude to do those kinds of things.
Oh, definitely.
And I don't see where either one of them had a past that would lead you to believe that lies and fairy tales and whatnot were part of their daily, goings-ons or whatever.
Let alone have the financial resources to make a suit or something that elaborate.
Couldn't have done it back then.
No.
I mean, the experts who were back then said it was impossible. They didn't have the fibers. They didn't have the material. They just couldn't have made them. Closest thing that came out of that particular generation to looking ape-like, was Charlton Heston's, Planet of the Apes and everything. And you look at those today and you kind of snicker, and we thought it was a really great movie and everything when we were back then.
I still watch that movie about twice a year, sometimes more. It's still my favorite.
Yeah. Well, it was a good story.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Well, it's like all the Star Wars films. The very first Star Wars that come out, like 78.
Yeah.
I still prefer it over all the others because you get to know the characters better.
Yeah, I agree.
And the other ones are okay. I like the other ones, all right. But the very original Star Wars came out in the 70s. To me, that was by far the best.
Yeah. My wife, Annie, says that Disney was the best thing that we could have invested money in, to watch on television, because I can just go back and watch those movies over and over and over and over and over again, and I'm perfectly happy.
Yeah, that's me. I like to watch some of them over and over. For a while, my wife didn't get the idea of watching Andy Griffith every day, but now she's kind of warmed up to it. 31 years.
I don't know, something about the Star Wars project, that the enormity of it. I mean, it just, it grabs you.
And supposedly Chewbacca is based on a Bigfoot, Bigfoot report or something. So I read. So.
Yeah. And he wouldn't admit that for years, but I think he's finally said, yeah, okay.
Didn't I also read that they had to have like security guards around or something to keep people from shooting him while he's in the woods,
Yeah. And he had to wear an orange vest. When they were filming the third film and they were in the forest in British Columbia or wherever it was, he had to wear an orange vest because they were afraid he was going to get shot.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, it looks like it's going to be just me and you tonight. I think Leo's computer actually has laid down on him.
Oh, that's sad.
It's probably just going to be me and you, unless he can get back on with his cell phone or something like that.
He'll figure it out.
Yeah, if he does, we'll jump back. We'll let him jump back in here with us.
You're still talking. If you're still talking Patterson Gimlin, it just goes on. I mean, there was so much evidence taken. And
yeah, true. I mean, the foot tracks, the video evidence. I mean, it's amazing, and the stories are. Some people say that the Patterson story and Bob's story are a little bit different, but they've seen it from they've seen a different version of the truth. Sure. Because they was at a different location. It's sometimes you can think about the Bible. Some of the disciples described the crucifixion slightly different because they was kind of viewing it from a different perspective.
Right. Whatever the source was, it differs.
That's
and
right.
I think that's the same with Patterson Gimlin too.
I think so too. And now Bob is pretty active going to events and things like that. So he's still, putting himself out there and still sticking to what he saw and what he.
It's never going to change. He'll go to his grave, same as Patterson did. There's absolutely, there was very little profit in it for him to begin with.
True.
And he could have exposed it years and years ago if he wanted to, and even made more money off of it. Imagine Hollywood getting a hold of that and then making a movie out of that, and him collecting royalties. But
right. One negative I think that came from the Patterson film, and it's not really a negative once people really dig into it, is that people are under the misconception that all Bigfoot look like Patty, and most of them don't.
No.
Most of them are kind of like human. They look a little different,
They do look a little different.
Person.
Right. I agree with that. And it's been my observation that that's very true.
And another thing, people too, sometimes they think that there's only one Bigfoot. I don't know if that stems from the Patterson footage or what, but they think there's only one Bigfoot in the whole world, and that's definitely not true.
Right, right, and they have the misunderstanding that there was only one, that Patty was the only Bigfoot that was there that day, and that's not true.
That's not true neither.
There was a juvenile and an infant, and further up the trail, they came across larger tracks. So there were 4 sets of footprints, if I'm not mistaken.
And I know you've watched the footage probably as many times as I have. At the very first of that footage, Patty, the Bigfoot, is squatted down. And a lot of people speculated over the years what she might have been doing. And I thought she might have been going to the bathroom or something. Or getting, I don't know if it was water there. It could have been getting a drink of water or something. I don't know.
It may have been just it's a natural action for an animal to lessen its size when it's being approached by a predator. And I know from personal experience that I duck down to avoid being seen, and that might have been the case. When I'm out hunting or whatever.
Yeah.
I try to make myself as small as possible, and the only way that you can do that is get close to the ground. And that may have been what she was doing.
Could have been. I know the original story that I heard also or read was that I think it was Bob followed Patty so far on a horseback, maybe like a mile or something or more down the creek bank.
I believe he did, and then he came back.
Yeah.
Because I guess they hadn't gathered up the other horse yet.
I used to study that a whole lot more back years ago before I really got into Bigfoot heavy, but over time you forget some of the details.
Yeah, there's whole stories that have been built behind the scenes by skeptics as well as by just those people that like to fantasize about things and create some horrific, background to it, and then there's the actual goings on when people started showing back up in the days to follow, and all the activities that went on there. I mean, they spent a good deal of time following the tracks until they just couldn't follow them anymore. They took something like, I can't even remember, but it's like hundreds of cast prints in different sizes.
You know as well as I do, for a Bigfoot to leave a track, the soil has to be kind of loose. And if you get into the mountains, a lot of times it's hard. They're just not going to leave a track. It's just not going to.
There had to have been rain in the previous days. I would think it was in the August, September time frame, and leaves hadn't really started coming down yet. Deciduous trees hadn't started shedding. But there's always a lot of in a conifer forest. There's always a lot of pine gander and everything. And
now the first tracks I really found were in those pine needles.
Yeah.
The first tracks I really found a whole lot of tracks. There was probably, I know there's over 30 in one line, but there was probably altogether close to 100 tracks.
Yeah.
And it was in all that pine needle. And you don't get much detail, but you get the depression into the soil.
Right. At least you get a confirmation of what you're doing there.
Right, and I'd always heard that Bigfoot walks in a straight line like a tightrope, and I'd found a few interesting things over the year, but nothing to that extent where I could actually see. Yeah, they do. They walk just like they're walking a tightrope, one foot in front of the other, which was, for me, if I had any doubts, that definitely sealed the deal.
The guys that I was working with, like when I was in Germany and down in the southeastern part of the United States, Florida, Georgia. We never found a continuous track. We would find a track here or a track there, but we would never find, a pathway of tracks. Even over in Germany, which really surprised me, we'd find one or two and that would be it. And we'd cast them. Those are all, and there's one fellow that took all that stuff. He's got it all. He's got all the casts. But,
well, not like today. I was out and I found there was Bigfoot tracks. No doubt there were Bigfoot tracks. It went up this little bank, and the soil was real loose, but you could see these impressions, which were probably as big as my foot, were 12. No definition, of course, but people will say, well, it was another ginsanger. Well, the funny thing is, it stepped right over ginseng.
right, kept going.
Red berries on it, so there's no way it was a ginsanger. It had to be a Bigfoot. And I know there's Bigfoot in that area, but I hadn't been back that deep because they had logged it, like I said, a couple of years ago.
Right.
So rough to get up in there, but I did it today. I was determined today to get up there.
It's funny you said that. You said, I know that there's something there. And I've had people ask before and say, well, where do you go? And I said, start right where you were at. If you live in the country, you live in, near a national forest or state park, just start right where you're at. You'd be surprised what you discover. All it takes is opening your eyes and seeing things from a different perspective for the first time.
Well, I talk about hunters a lot of times. The hunters say, well, I've hunted all my life and I've never seen one or never seen anything. Well, that's because that's not what you're looking for. You're not geared for that. You're looking for a deer or turkey or whatever you're hunting.
Right.
And you're totally oblivious to what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, I tried to use that example one time with a friend of ours, a family friend of ours. He literally grew up in the fields and the forests here, and all he ever did was hunt and fish, and until he was probably in his mid-20s and went to college, and marriage and then children and so forth. And he still does hunt, he still does fish, but not anyways near what he used to. And he's not ever out in the woods anymore. But he that whole thing about I forget who it was. Well, you never see a dead bear in the woods. and he would say, his first name is Eric. I'll just leave it at that. Eric would say, I have. Okay, come up with another example. Okay, because it's so funny because when they do that whole thing on television in one of the documentaries, and I forget which one it is, and the guy goes on about, you never see dead bear in the woods. Well, we come across a lot of dead things, and you may not see a dead bear in the woods, but I think the whole analogy there was because there's fewer bear in the woods than there are any other creatures. But I imagine where you live, there's a lot of black bear.
Oh, tons of them.
We have just in this general area, because they're not great wanderers. If there's fruits and nuts and berries and grubs, and the females stay to a certain location, then the males come. So the sows will stay in a certain area, and the boar bears will come in, and it's usually only one or two boar bears that come in and looking to father cubs. And we counted them one year just in this general area, which is like maybe a mile and a half, maybe 2 square miles at the most around the farm. And we counted 22. That's including cubs from that year and everything. But 22 bears in my neighborhood that's a lot of bear.
Yeah, it is.
And I know there's there's something to the tune of like 44,000 of them in the state of New Hampshire. Now, we're not the biggest place in the world, but we're not a postage stamp either, like Rhode Island. So 44,000 bears is that's a pretty big number.
In our county, I think it was last year, they estimated that we had 300 black bear. And I can tell you that's way under what the real number is.
What's in the county, right? Right.
Yeah, it's way, because just a couple of years ago, in 2 days, I seen 9.
Right.
And then I know up here where they got a coal mine closed down, they got people night watching. I know they've got the one they call Leroy, he's always there, big old male. And then there's a mama and 2 cubs, and there's another female. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 right there in that one little area that just hang out pretty often. They see them pretty often.
Right.
But now our bear population exploded just a few years ago. I mean, we didn't really have any. If you ran across the black bears, very, very rare. And then they started turning a few more loose. And now we get them coming down their driveway, walking down the back. There's 2 different ones that come over here at the garbage bin, and they'll get garbage out and pack it off. And one of them's pretty good size. That one that goes down the back of the house here, down the railroad track, it's the biggest black bear I've seen in this area.
Oh yeah. We had one how tall would you say that was, honey?
I don't know.
It had to be. I mean, usually they're not as tall as a man that's like 5'9", 5'10". They're usually a little bit shorter.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to. This one was in the pasture out back, and I would have to estimate that it was 6 feet tall. It was a big bear. So
Biggest I've ever seen.
biggest my wife's ever seen, and she's been up here for 30 something years. And we figured that this was like midsummer, but he had to have weighed in close to 500 pounds, and that's 250 pounds more than a heavy female, a heavy sow. And your average black bear male during the summertime, your average boar is probably around 330 pounds maybe. This guy had to be, I mean, he was up there. He had to be like 500 pounds or more.
Well, this one that walks down through here, it's real heavy.
Yeah.
We got some dogs out back, and I mean, they were within 4 or 5 feet of the bear, barking like crazy, and the bear acted like it didn't even exist. Just walked right on down through there.
Yeah, you're not going to tree that bear.
Just pay a bit more attention to them than anything.
Yeah.
And one of them we got here, it's the father to the 2 dogs I got running loose, and we got him on a chain. I know a lot of people don't like that, but if I don't, he's going to get killed, and he's very destructive. Now, during the daytime, he'll lay around all day long, but quick as it gets dark, that hunting instinct kicks in, and he's all over the place and all over the neighborhood.
Right.
And we got a road for us. I don't want him to get killed. He's an older dog now.
Well,
Dynamite.
We keep ours in a penned area, and they don't stay out unless one of us is out there, because one of them's just, it's a miniature poodle, and the other one is a standard poodle. And that's the only 2 that we have at this time. But we've got too many eastern coyotes.
We got coyotes too.
Yeah, and they are not afraid to come into the yard. They are not afraid to walk that fence line on the other side. And there's no doubt in my mind, there's no doubt in my wife's mind, that they'll come over the top of that 6-foot fence. And she had let a couple of dogs out when she was working with Australian Shepherds. And she used to train them for agility. And she had taken the dogs out so that they could go. And the coyotes just lined up all the way around that fence. There were 4 or 5 of them. And her dogs just got right behind her and stayed right behind. They never made a sound. They knew that they were lunch. Yeah. Or that's what the coyotes were thinking. Until she pulled them back into the house and everything. But I mean, that's bold.
Yeah.
Right up to, right up to within 100, less than I guess maybe that's
25, 30.
about 30 feet. The fence is about 30 feet away from the back door. And I know this is country, and I know that there's wilderness around here, but holy cow. They cross. We've got one pack that I watch cross the road, and they will come in. They will enter the top of our driveway, and then cross where I've got the clover field and the apple trees growing, and then go into the wetlands. There's like 5, 6, 7 of them. They're every bit as big as a German Shepherd.
Yep. Some of them
We're not talking 50 pounds. You know, out west, the western coyotes are only between 20 and 30 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Eastern coyotes average about 50 pounds.
Yeah, ours are like that.
These coyotes have been, you know, they back chain population so that it's not one generation or 2 generations that's mixed with the gray wolf. We're talking generation upon generation upon generation that's mixing with the gray wolves. And now they're saying that it's the red wolves up in Maine. But, you know, a gray wolf can get to be 150 pounds.
You know, see, that's something we've got in our area now. People don't believe me, but I've found their tracks. And I know one person that's seen one. We actually have wolves in this area again.
I don't doubt it. Yeah.
Well, they told me that they had planned on releasing some to help control the elk population. So I guess because they can take down, you know, catch elk or whatever. But I found tracks that were way too big for a coyote.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not somebody's big house dog back in the, you know, Gobbler's Knob back there wandering around.
Right. So we have them here, and there's I've always figured that there's 4 packs, and there's like, okay, there's the southern pack, there's the eastern pack, there's the northern pack around the properties here, around the 2 farms or the 3 farms that are here. But you can go out at night and you can howl, and they will howl back, and it's like they're talking to you because somebody called us, and they howl back. It's a greeting so that you know where they are. Same as the whole purpose of Bigfoot answering.
Well, speaking of Bigfoot, what do you think the relationship is between, say, coyotes and Bigfoot? Do you think they have some kind of relationship there? They hate each other? They help each other? Or how do you think that works?
I think that there's so many animals out there that have something that's similar to a symbiotic relation that they help each other. You know, I think the crows help the fox, you know, and the fox, you know, helps this one or that one or whatever. And so I think that the coyotes, it's the same way. There's a symbiotic relationship. There's something, there's communication going on in forests, you know, areas and wildlife areas all the time that we don't have a clue what it is. And somebody was talking about hunting, and they were talking about how do you get the turkeys to, you know, to answer? And I said, I always carried a crow call. And I said, just as soon as I piped on that crow call, some tom turkey would answer back, because he was letting all the others know there's crows here somewhere. So instead of using a turkey call, you know, and I know other people that do the same thing. They'll use a different call when they're hunting for a particular animal or whatever. They'll use a different call to get the other animals to react. And it's why some people carry predator calls, and it's why some people will carry a coyote call or whatever, and to see what else reacts to that answers to it. But I'm a big believer in animal communication and either assisting one another or, in some cases, you know, the opposite. They're not helping each other because they're enemies of some kind. But I think for the most part, when you're talking crows and you're talking coyotes, you're talking Bigfoot, you're talking fox and things like that, I think that there's a constant communication going on amongst them to let each other know what's where, what else is where. And the poor turkeys are probably being chased from one spot to the next all day long.
I seen some turkeys today. I seen about, I don't know, 6 or 8 of them. But
Yeah.
I've had turkeys chase me before in the mountains. They'd be on a nest. You get too close, man, they'll just come at you like crazy. And like, get back through there somewhere. That's pretty good size.
Yeah. I've had Canada geese do that. I've known Canada geese to do that. But
Them things are evil, buddy. Them and swans, they'll attack you in a heartbeat.
Yeah, a friend of mine was in a yard, in somebody's yard, and this is much younger days. We were working for the Department of Public Works, and we were supposed to put in some new water pipes from the street to the house, and the fence said, "Beware of sentinel geese." Carl was like, "Well, I'll go." He was a big football player. I'd never seen as big as he was. I'd never seen a big guy with so many tears, because he came running back out of that yard, and they were just holding on to him, biting him. They wouldn't let go, and he jumped the fence. It was a small, white picket fence. He went right over the top of that fence, and the geese stayed on the other side.
That's funny.
But I mean, he had these great big pinch marks and bruises all over the backs of his legs.
That's funny. Well, let's move on to another topic. We've talked about the Patterson Bigfoot.
Yeah.
This is something I find it's hard. I guess it's hard to determine. I mean, we can look at maybe historical records to some degree. The lifespan of Bigfoot. How long do you think a Bigfoot lives?
That's really a good question. A gorilla can live in the wild for quite a while. They can live in captivity even longer because they're cared for. But I mean, it's nothing for a mountain gorilla or a lowland gorilla to live to be 35, 40 years old. And so I would imagine, if we're talking primate, I would imagine easily 50 or more. The reason why I say that is because it's a much more intelligent animal, and a great deal of energy and your health depends on your survival. So if it's truly a survivalist and everything, then 50 years is not too much to imagine.
Well, I know there were some cases back in the 40s that I looked into locally of a white Bigfoot, which is kind of unique to have a white Bigfoot. And I've told some of this story before. These folks that came and they were building a house in the 40s, late 40s, and the white Bigfoot ran them off. They never come back and finished the house. Well, you fast forward into the 80s, and there's reports of the same Bigfoot being seen all through those years and chasing these guys on a four-wheeler and stuff like that all the way up into the late 80s. So, that's probably it's 40 years roughly there. So
40 more years, yeah, easily.
So
and that would be a good way to kind of research that, to gauge it for age, is simply because it stands out. As an individual, it's so different than the others.
Mm-hmm. We don't get many white Bigfoot reports in this area. That's one there. It's been around. It's been around so long they actually seen it enough they gave it a name.
Right.
And then we got one over in Tennessee that I know that a person I know saw a white Bigfoot when he was out squirrel hunting, and he watched it smack a tree and everything. He was fairly close to it. He left his squirrel pack and everything there.
Wow.
But he still hunts in the area now. So, I mean, he went back. I did an interview with him a long time ago. And he went and actually sat in on one of the town hall meetings for finding Bigfoot and told his story and all that kind of stuff, I think, too. So, but I guess so many years had passed, they didn't want to go to the area and check it out.
Yeah.
But I'm like you, I would say 50 years or better at least. Maybe.
I would say that too. I mean, big animals. Big animals can live long lives. Now, bears don't live very long in the wild, but they can live. We have an amusement park here that's been around since World War II, I guess, and they train black bears that have been abandoned by their mothers or whatever, and they bring them up, and they have, it's called Clark's. What do they call trading post?
Oh yeah, we still do like that.
Yeah, and those bears live quite a long time, but they can be. We just lost one. We just lost one of the matriarchs, and she was 28, 29 years old, I think. But they have had them to live in their 30s and, 36, 37 years old. It's like horses. You get horses, that's almost a lifelong endeavor for you.
Oh yeah.
Because, I think the oldest horse just perished in the United States, and I think it was 58 years old. But it's very normal for people like ourselves here for these horses to live to be in their 30s. So,
well, we've got a bird. We bought a cockatiel. Man, it's 20. It has to be 20-some-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's going to outlive me.
Oh yeah.
It's a lifelong thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Those tortoises that they bring back from the Sahara Desert, you're talking generations. You're talking your grandchildren still with those things after you've passed and your children have passed. Your grandchildren still have the pet tortoise.
Yeah. We got a question here from Wendy. Do you think Bigfoot stays living in the same family unit? I think they do function as a family unit. At some point, either the leader, the father figure, I guess, the father probably either becomes too old and the younger one takes over. But if the father is still in good health, I would say the younger males will eventually strike out on their own and go form their own units somewhere.
Right.
What I would think was happened.
I agree with that. So that's.
I know one place where I think that was kind of what was happening. I know there's Bigfoot farther on back in the mountain, but this one was kind of in an area. He seemed to be by himself. But I think he was trying to establish his own location, but that's where the logging took place. And so his home was right in where the logging was. I mean, I found all kinds of stick structures and all kinds of stuff. Never did see him, but I would say that was probably some of his clan or something I found because I was way back today.
Right.
But I think that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to break out and do his own thing because he had everything there. There's water, food, and all that kind of stuff right there in that same area.
Exactly.
But when you go on back another 4 miles, that's where I had a Bigfoot thing years earlier when I was a teenager. So I think that's kind of what was going on there. Now that I think about it, a lot of times you don't think of that stuff when it's going on. You think about it later on,
Right. I think the single males, are probably very inquisitive too. And so if there is a logging operation going on, they're probably going to hang around that spot because it's entertainment to them.
Something different.
Otherwise they're alone out there, or maybe with one other, sibling or somebody another one that they've come across. But I mean, I've heard stories where people said there's been one and it's been in this area and it watches us, quote unquote watchers.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder, because human activity is very peculiar to them, and so they're gonna watch.
Curious. I think they're curious of us.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Just the bad part is about where that logging was. It was kind of disrupted where he was staying at the most. So he may have to go on somewhere else. I found some weird stuff in there. It was almost like he was trying to make a bed out of sticks. You had like one long stick, and then you had a bunch laying crossways, almost like he was making a small, well, it wasn't small, it was big, bed on the ground. It was really weird. I got pictures of it somewhere, and a lot of times he would break branches and things.
Yeah, we've come across some peculiar things too, and sometimes you go, well, this must have been one bored hiker. But then you look at it and you go, there's a hiker wouldn't spend their time building a leaf nest with twigs and things, and they just wouldn't.
Back where I'm talking about, there's not really any hikers. Occasionally you get a deer hunter or something like that, but not really no hikers. There was an old deer stand way back there, but I don't know whatever happened to it. I don't know if they cut the tree down it was on or what.
Well, what happened, right?
It's hard to get back to it too.
Yeah. Bigfoot got tired of the guy in the tree. He probably scared him out.
Well, I know I was back there one time, and I think it was ginseng hunting, and I'd seen a big buck in front of me. He ran off. Didn't think nothing about it, but he had circled around in behind me, and he snorted at me. Man, you talk about a fella jumping. What's going on? He got close to me. He was curious of what I was doing or who I was, I guess. And he circled.
And that was a buck.
Yeah.
Yeah. My cousin Mark and I had that happen to us one time. Your dad says, well, go here, go around that hill, because I'm going to go up over the top of the hill, because that's where, and they send somebody around the other side of the hill, and you're stuck down on the road, walking the road, and next thing you know, that deer comes back.
Yep, there it is.
It's slipping and sliding on the ice and the snow, and it's doing ice skate follies in the middle of the road and spinning around, and then when it sees you, it snorts and it chases you because it's angry at all. Get out. It's like, you're the guy that did this to me. No, I'm not.
Okay, my next question is a controversial question. I don't even know if I should ask it, but I'm going to anyways. Yeah. What do you think is the best and biggest Bigfoot hoax of all time?
Oh, wow.
There's so many to choose from.
Wow. Well, I do know. Is it okay to name names?
Well, if you want to, if you can handle the repercussions, I don't care.
Yeah, no, but I do know that a very well-known individual spent a lot of money for a rubber suit that was filled with, chicken guts and possum cuts and everything else, So, and he even went so far as, after that, when he realized he was duped, he created a video on the anatomy of a hoax. But I don't think he ever thought that anybody would ever be brave enough to try and pull something like that on him. Because he was well connected, and because he always had his airs about him that, that he was the biggest and the best. And
Get me a Snapple.
yeah,
So you
that
think
one.
you think the
That one, I
freezer
think.
you think the freezer hoax was probably the biggest?
Yeah,
Well,
that one I think is probably the
that
biggest.
was a good one because it had a lot of not social media, but news media involved.
Oh
I think,
yeah,
I think
yeah,
Rick Dyer's last Bigfoot hoax was probably the biggest and best for me.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, where he shot the one and it all, they had a video of it, and he had the producer and all, the director and all that in on it for a while, and I thought that was probably the biggest hoax. There's so
He's,
many to choose from. I mean,
he's done some good. Rick Dyer has done some good ones. That one where he's in the tent and he's looking
that's the
through
one. Yeah, that's part of it.
he's looking through the flap of the tent, and he claims that the Bigfoot he's got a rack of ribs nailed to the tree.
Yeah.
I had to study that real close. I had to really look at that and go, okay, this can't be, But that
in
was
Middlesboro, there's a museum in Middlesboro, Historical Society is what it is, and they have a suit in there of a Bigfoot that was donated by Tom Biscardi. Tom's boy Thomas actually he married a girl over here locally, and I like Tom and Thomas, but I don't think that's the actual suit that they used. And Tom actually, some of his earlier videos and work was pretty decent.
Oh yeah.
But once he got in with the freezer guys, it kind of went down.
It kind of ruined his reputation, unfortunately. Yeah. Now I notice that he takes a back seat to everything, and he lets his son Tommy, do all the front work and everything. But yeah, one of his first videos, Bigfoot Lives, was a really good video.
It was a good one. Yeah, I watched that one.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that everything on it was true, and what I'm saying is that the way that the narration and the way in the direction and everything, it was a good video.
Mm-hmm. Well, even Rick Dyer, I've talked to Rick on the phone, and really, if you take Bigfoot away from, get him away from Bigfoot, Rick Dyer's actually a pretty nice guy.
Yeah.
But you can't. When it comes to Bigfoot, you just can't believe anything he tells you. But there's a lot of them out there like that.
There's a lot of those guys out there.
It's no different than these people that put up pictures of foliage and claim there's 3 Bigfoot in it. It's no different, It's still not.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. People do that all the time, and you're sitting there shaking your head, going, "Why am I looking at this?" And yet you're still looking at it because you're going, "Well, is it pareidolia or is it?" No, they just stuck it. They could stick a blank photo up in front of you and said, "There's a Bigfoot in there," and we'd still look.
Well, I've even got people I've seen who are taking pictures of the clouds, and they'll swear that it's Bigfoot in the sky, and they're serious. They're not that the cloud is just so happen to be shaped kind of like a man or something. They actually believe it's a real Bigfoot. So I can't go that far.
That's going to be some good marijuana or something. You gotta, if you're seeing Bigfoot in the clouds, okay. So I mean, maybe there's a UFO connection there we don't know about.
I don't know. And I guess if you look at the clouds, it's 80 foot tall. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, it's the shooting Bigfoot thing, which spun off to Rick Dyer's dead Bigfoot, and he made the thing and toured it around and let people look at it. Charge them to look at it. That's probably the biggest hoax and the best hoax
I think so.
that I know of.
Those were good.
At least he's creative, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder what. I know he's been sued and.
Oh yeah.
He's been in and out of court and everything, but it kind of makes you wonder what's he going to do next.
Oh well, I'm sure he's got something up his sleeve. I seen where he was starting to do Bigfoot videos again, maybe a few months ago or something. So I don't know. Next big thing, you never know. He come up with some good ones. I don't know if he's got somebody helps him or what, but he comes up with some stuff.
Yeah. So
while we don't like hoaxes, I mean, it does sometimes. It brings people in that
yeah.
maybe wouldn't be in to look
Then
at.
and then everybody, everybody's the world is split. I'm just going to come out and say it. The world is split on Todd Standing. And, yeah, and so when he came, I mean, I was willing to go along and watch and listen until he came up with the Muppets.
Blinky.
Yeah, Winky, Blinky, and Nod. And then I was like, nah, I'm done. I'm done with this guy.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend who actually invited him to his area, and he was having real Bigfoot activity, and he caught a few things on camera and stuff. And he told me now, and I can't verify it 100%, but he told me, and I believe him pretty much, that Todd basically run him out of his own area. And
that happens. There's a whole bunch of people up there that have claimed spots and claimed that they're theirs, and there's more people that are in and out of those areas because nobody owns those places. You can't own what's Indian reservation, and you can't own what's British British Columbia forested areas or whatever, and so they do. And one guy parked his camper up there saying that this is the center of my research area and you can't touch it, and somebody came along and set that camper on fire.
Yeah, that sounds like something would happen around here.
So all those guys and they chase each other out, and they're shaking fists at each other, and they're shooting rifles in the air or whatever, throwing firecrackers off at night so that the research that whatever you're doing is blown,
Wow.
Using searchlights and everything and crazy stuff. Just so, just sitting there in a car and honking a horn for hours.
Wow.
But, I think Jason what's his name? Chirpansky?
Oh, yeah.
I think and he finally got tired of all of that. He just said, I think he just walked away from that area too. That he was all up in there. The only one that ever seemed to get any respect being in that area was the Survivor man.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody seemed to bother him, and everybody wanted to be his buddy because they figured, well, he'd bring credibility to what's going on. But he never comes out. He never says, well, Todd Standing's doing this and that's right, or whatever. He never, or any of the other people that are in. He just kind of he usually leaves you with another question to answer for yourself.
The bad part is, I think a lot of those guys, they kind of use it to get views, to get more people to watch their show, or get more people on their YouTube channel or things like that. And then so they know if they come out and say, well, it's not real, or it's what he's done is not real, they would lose those views. So they kind of play it along and get the views. I think that happens a lot. Not saying any of those guys will do that, but I'm just saying I think that happens quite a bit.
Right.
And nowadays it's all about getting the likes and the views and things like that, which I like likes and views too, but I'm not going to do shady stuff just to get them.
No, I understand that.
I'd rather be, open and as legitimate as I know how to be, and provide decent information that's, through experience or whatever, and just to go out here and throw on a suit or make fake. I know some people who parade around fake foot tracks. Maybe they think they're real. I don't know. I've seen some that were blatantly fake, and I've seen some that were human that they tried to pass off as Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And a human foot track and a Bigfoot track is totally different.
Right, it is.
I mean,
that just seems like a massive waste of time to me. I mean,
I know.
You gotta have nothing going on upstairs to walk around leaving footprints behind.
Yeah, I just don't get it neither. Okay, let's go on to another question. This is kind of interesting. You may have some insight on some of this. What do you think would scare Bigfoot? What would he be afraid of? Natural predator of some sort? We know maybe if a human had a rifle or a gun or something like that, he'd probably avoid him. You think he's got any natural predators that he may avoid?
A lot of people want to place him as the apex predator in a forest. But even the apex predators have to be wary of other predators, especially when it comes to infants and juveniles. So I would say that there's danger wherever there's mountain lion.
Yeah, we got those.
Yeah. I would say that there's danger wherever there's grizzly bear, brown bear, Kodiak, whatever you want to call them, depending on where they are. They're still big, and that paw of theirs, the way it's designed, it's designed to rip things open. You only have to be hit by it once.
Right.
It's not a climbing paw like the black bears have, but it's like it's the way it's designed, the way that those nails are designed, those individual claws are designed. It's almost like a knife. So it's crazy, like a curved knife, but a knife. So I would say that a grizzly bear presents a big problem. Now, if Bigfoot is intelligent as we think, then they probably managed to avoid some of these critters. Some animals mark their territory. I'm sure that they do, and I'm sure that other animals stay clear of them. And it does depend on the time of year and everything. And I don't see a female cougar with cubs pestering anything other than maybe sheep or goats.
Well, you think that any infant Bigfoot, a small, taller size Bigfoot, would be vulnerable to a coyote, wolf?
I do. Simply by the nature of their inability and lack of knowledge.
And then, like somebody mentioned there in the comments, like dogmen, which we don't get very many dogmen reports here. But I would say dogmen and Bigfoot probably, I'd say there's an instance where they don't get along.
Yeah.
That there's territory overlaps, and they don't get along.
I'm a holdout on dogmen, but what I'll agree with is, like there's Sasquatch, no doubt about it. There's Bigfoot, same thing, and there's other forest giants. I just don't know what those other forest giants are, and I've got to see one, I guess, to believe it. I don't even know when the reference to Dogman first occurred in the United States, or is this just a pushover or another version of a werewolf or something, or what? I don't know, but I'm not sure. When did people start seeing Dogman?
Right. Yeah, that's me. I don't know really the origin.
I don't know the history behind it.
But I'm like you. I think it's very similar in appearance to what we commonly call a werewolf, and we've called a werewolf forever.
Right.
But the difference is that supposedly a werewolf is a transformation from a person to a werewolf, and the dogman is always a dogman.
Right.
distinction I know really between them.
Exactly. But, science is trying to push on things on us like the multiverse and
Yeah.
Other planes of existence and things like that. And as long as science is willing to accept those theories, then people like you and I can speculate.
Well, we was talking about what else that might be a threat to Bigfoot. I would assume other Bigfoot, if, like you say, the territory overlaps, or
I would think so too. And somebody has not me. I don't really. I don't spend too much time thinking about, but a lot of people categorize the Bigfoot. So they say, oh, there's this version, that version, this version, and that version.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't think we know enough to actually do that yet.
I don't either. What I've seen for myself, in appearance is different. But I mean, I'm sure I don't look anything like a 7-foot tall Watusi warrior. And if you stand me up next to one of those and you say, men, somebody's going to look at you and go, no.
Right.
The little guy's a man. What's the big guy? Type of thing. And
yeah, they got them by types, like a type 12, a type 10.
Yeah, I just don't.
I don't know how they get that.
I don't either, and I don't spend any time thinking about it. When people start talking about it, it's time for me to go find another coffee or something and move on from that table to the next one. So, but Dogfoot's kind of been like that with me too. I don't know. I've never met anyone that's ever bumped into one. Nobody around here has ever talked about them, but that doesn't mean that in the next county, that's all the rave and that's all they talk about. And they don't even think Bigfoot lives down there or something. But
well, no, we've had just I don't know, 2 or 3 cases maybe here in Harlan and Bell County that I've got a hold of dog man sightings.
Yeah,
it's something we don't have much here. Now there's quite a few Bigfoot sightings and stuff that go on, and a lot of times people talk to me off the record because they don't want to. I don't know. I guess they're just afraid of the ridicule that comes with it. And then you do get that. I mean, when you say you believe in Bigfoot, man, you're opening yourself up to all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. There are a lot of people around here that have had sightings and everything, but they don't want to talk about it. And this is Grafton County, and it's one of the 2 biggest counties in New Hampshire. Those 2 biggest counties have less than 5% of the total population of New Hampshire. So we every square mile around here might have 5, 6, 7, 8 people on it, and then the next square mile next to it might have nobody on it.
Sounds like around here.
We live where there's roads, and there's roads where there's streams, and it's Appalachia. So this particular area they call the Ammonoosuc area, because it has one large river running through it. It's the Ammonoosuc River. And so the Ammonoosuc area was 200 years ago, this was the frontier, just like where you are.
Mm-hmm.
200 years ago, there were a lot of French and Indians in this area, and Britain was trying to push them out of the area. Britain and the colonists were trying to push them out of the area, but it still has a lot of its old familiar old things to it. There's still areas in here that are considered wilderness and patches of wilderness. And then there's areas where you really can't get into. So you wouldn't know what, you can't get into them unless you're dropped in by helicopter or you parachute into them because they're that narrow, and it's strange. They've opened one up just south of here, but where I was going with all this, Tom, was Crystal Panic is the Finding Bigfoot investigator for New Hampshire. She lives down in the southern part of the state. She's got one other person that she works with that she trusts to investigate all of the reports. And she keeps the most active map on what has and hasn't been investigated, and she's got the pile of paper that, all those future investigations and everything. She's shared with a few of us one day in a mini Finding Bigfoot town hall. I don't think there were 20 of us there, but we spent the whole day with her, and she had a map of Grafton County, and there were 83 stars on Grafton County that were whatever color I think red was what she was using, that had been investigated, and she had determined they were hot, that they were real. And then there was a number that were green or blue and yellow. But there are 83 sightings that have been turned into her just in this county alone. And you can go out on the web and you can look up that map, all the maps that they keep of New Hampshire or all the different states, and you look up and you see how many reports there are. Nobody's keeping that internet map and those internet reports up to date. She certainly doesn't do it because she spends all of her free time out there doing investigations. And this is a woman that works full time, is raising a family and everything. And she has to do the traveling and everything, and she has to coordinate that with the other person that she's researching with and doing the investigations with. So she can only get so many done. I mean, she picked Grafton because there were so many, Grafton County, because there were just so many, and she brought it up to date as much as she possibly could. So there are other places where there might be, there are other counties in the state where there only might be one or two pins. But then again, it might be that nobody's reporting them, and that would be more in the southern areas, down Merrimack Way or further south like Hillsborough or some of those other counties that are further south, Derry.
Well, I can tell you it's a full-time job to try to keep up with everything that I do. And I know we have a map, and about everything on our map is either something that's been directly sent to us or something that we have investigated ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's tons of things on there, but it's almost impossible to keep up with all the sightings, and especially if you do field work and you try to follow up. So a lot of times I try to follow up with people, and either there's no reply. I take it that the message goes to their spam folder, or sometimes they don't give a phone number. Sometimes they do, and you don't want to cold call somebody just out of the blue. That's not it's not nothing you want to do.
No,
it takes a lot of time.
No, and I hold off sometimes. Somebody will tell me I've got a neighbor, and she's told me that so and so over on this mountain or over on that mountain or whatever has had a sighting, and maybe you should talk to them. And I don't like the cold thing, and I'll be like, well, ask them if they're willing to talk about it. I'm not a researcher like I'm not an investigator, but I don't mind going out there and doing what research I do. To me, it's a lot of fun. It's not a business.
Well, that's me. I have a lot of fun at it. I've tried to turn it into something I can,
Right.
supplement my income with.
Because you spend so much time at it. It's like a full-time job for you.
Oh yeah, and I've got debt that I've incurred. Not only making films but buying computers and gear and stuff like that. And to be honest at it and try to make some of the money back, it's very difficult, because if you're honest in this field, a lot of times you get overlooked because you don't have that spectacular headline that grabs people's attention.
Right.
Just overlooked.
Right. And I've seen people that have they're very honest, and that's turned them.
Oh yeah.
So they were so honest about it, and nobody was paying any attention to what they had seen and what they had done, and they weren't getting the sponsorship or anything else like that. That okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to scrutinize everybody's report, and I'm going to criticize it.
And worst case scenario, they actually start hoaxing.
Right.
Let's address this question that Wendy put up. We're talking about Bigfoot fighting for mates, territory, like other animals. I think the biggest thing is they fight for resources, which would be territory, water supply, food supply, and Bigfoot probably at times fights for mates. But
I think all of that's true.
Yeah, I think
I think it's all true. You know me. I sit here and I photograph the birds, and I photograph the hummingbirds, and I've never seen a more aggressive animal than the ruby-throated hummingbird in my life. My wife Annie she sent me an article the other day that talks about how aggressive they are, and they fight over everything. So when you're talking about resources, I mean, I think they're out there fighting over a breath of air, and it's like crazy because they never stop. So when we're talking about something like Bigfoot, whose resources are, well, limited because every other animal in the forest is eating mushrooms and algae and and leaves and berries and nuts and whatever, grubs and the whole 9 yards. I think that there's competition between themselves and competition between other animals, and I think that's where the lines get drawn. When it's who's going to survive and who's not going to survive.
I think personalities are different too, just like people.
Right.
We have a bad day, maybe we're a little more aggressive than we are on other days, or some people are just mean and nasty every day. So I'm sure that Bigfoot also has that amongst them, of people who are just nasty.
There's a system of dominance in wolves and fox and everything that's out here. There's a system of dominance just in my horses.
Sure.
And so they reestablish that pattern of dominance every morning. So it's almost like they have their own cultural thing where, well, we're going to start this game over of who's the tail mare and who's the head mare and whatever, and they make that decision every morning when they go out to the pasture, and it's done within seconds, and it's harmless because they just come up to each other and it's like they all look at each other and go, okay, you're the boss again.
I've seen it in my dogs. When we got the younger dog, the old dog didn't want to give his position up. He wanted to be the lead dog, and he would fight. He wouldn't quit. He would make sure, and his hips were bad, and the young dog could handle him pretty good, but he wouldn't quit. So the young dog eventually would give up, and he kept the lead dog.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we got another question here, and I think this is a very good question. Do you think Bigfoot is more akin to a hunter-gatherer culture? I'm sure they are. Uh, I'm sure they make they even I'd say they even prepare for winter.
I think so. And why wouldn't they? We do.
Yeah.
I think most of the animals outside are doing that. I have no idea how squirrels find the nuts after they bury them, but I think there's probably stashes of little things here and there. And when it comes time to stop moving for the winter, I think that they settle down in an area where they know that there's enough resources to get them through the winter.
And here's a good question too. Do you believe that they have permanent residence here in Bell, Harlan, Claymore counties, or they just travel? This goes back to the migration theory. And why would they migrate from here? Our winters are not bad. We have plenty of deer and food sources. We have plenty of water. So I think migration is maybe it happens in some areas, but it don't happen around here. I've been following the same plan of Bigfoot for 10 years.
It doesn't even happen in other with other forms of wildlife and other forms of animals anymore within the North American area. It's not like there's great herds that migrate like in Africa. We used to have caribou and we used to have elk herds, and we had bison herds that migrated. And the elk herd in Yellowstone Park only migrates 22 miles today. And so when you're talking about migration, I think you're talking about going up this hill and down that valley. And then when winter's over, going back up that hill and down the other valley. And I think that the exchange of scenery and protecting yourself from the prevailing winds and the prevailing weather that comes in at wintertime or whatever that's it. You just go to the other side of the mountain.
I think maybe the only time I see where one may travel unexpectedly, I guess, or migrate would be in search of a mate, which here in Bell and Harlan County, there's a lot of Bigfoot here. People just don't realize.
Yeah.
And the one I've been tracking for 10 years or more. Now, in the wintertime, when all the leaves come down, I do know they draw back a little farther in the mountains than they normally do when everything's green, but they're still there. They still come through occasionally, but not like they do in the spring and in the summer.
Right.
But
no, I have to agree with that.
The ability of the desire, I should say, to find a mate is one of the most compelling forces there is. It's even rated, right up there with hunger. So if a young male is wanting to find a mate, it's not impossible for him to travel a long distance to find that mate.
Right.
I just don't think he really has to right here in this general area.
Right. No, I agree with that. And all sorts of studies have been done about animal migration and for that reason, whatever. And we have mountain lions that come through this area all the time in search of mates. And they travel enormous distances. I think that the average distance for a territory for a mountain lion, male mountain lion, is greater than 200 square miles. It's like,
yeah, I've read that. Yeah, and there've been cases where black bears traveled more than what they normally would for
right. And they're not big and black bears are not big travelers. But if they're looking for something in particular, like a mate, I can see that. I can see them try.
Didn't we do it?
Yeah. I tried. I did. I traveled. I traveled back here from Florida. So
I put many a miles on that old Camaro looking around.
I had a friend that lived out in Montana, and he lived in the same county as the girl that he married, and they were good friends of mine. And I used to call her Sis because we were close. And Mike was telling me one time, he says, I don't know how many cars I went through, how many rebuilds I went through. He says, when we were in high school, and I said, how do you put that kind of mileage on you? You know, they break down and everything else like that. And he goes, we live in the same county. He goes, but it's 70 miles away. I was like, your county's that big? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I live on one side of the county. She lives on the other side of the county, and they went to a county high school.
Oh, wow.
70 miles one direction just to go see his girlfriend. I was like, dude.
Well, I ended up marrying somebody who was an 8-hour drive away, so
Yeah.
the telephone helped us a whole lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hey, let's go on to the next question, I guess. Okay, this is probably going to vary too by region. How tall do you think a male Bigfoot might reach height-wise?
Well, I've heard all sorts of heights and everything. And I can. It's entirely possible that these people have got it correct when they say that thing had to be 11 feet tall, or that thing had to be, whatever. But I can only really go by what I've seen, and I'm guessing 7.5 feet tall, maybe bigger, but guessing like maybe 7.5 feet tall was about what I saw the first time. And I'm thinking specifically down in Florida, a lot shorter, but probably in the 6 to 6.5 foot tall range.
Well, now, the average here, I've taken in a lot of reports, is between 6 and 7 foot tall is probably the average, is what we get here. But now, I know the one I saw here in front of my house was probably right at 10 foot tall.
Yeah. I mean,
but I've heard people say, some of them say that they get 25 foot tall, and I just don't see them getting that tall. I would say probably anywhere from 10 to 12, 13 feet would probably knock it in the head.
Yeah.
I think that's probably more, would be more.
Yeah, look at
25 foot tall.
Yeah, look at people. I mean, we range anywhere from 2.5, 3 feet tall to, that's crazy when you're only 2.5, 3 feet tall, and you're a full grown human, to all the way up to something that's close to 8 feet. I think is the tallest person right now, close to 8 feet.
7'8" or 9" or something like that.
So I mean, that's a big range.
Sure, you take somebody like Shaquille O'Neal standing beside a female that's 5'3". That's a big difference,
That's right.
Here's a good question too. Why do you suppose there aren't more remnants of chewed on bones or hides from Bigfoot kills? And my personal opinion is, I think that bones decompose fast. Other animals eat them, like skunks and rodents and things like that.
Everything eats them up here.
And you take even deer eat bone. Sure.
And people don't realize that. It's the calcium that they're after.
Exactly what they're after. But if let's say a Bigfoot kills a deer, he's taking that deer back to wherever they live at, wherever they're staying at, most likely in a cave, and that thing deteriorates back there, and we're not going to find it back there unless we get back in the cave.
Not unless it's preserved somehow. And the thing is, when it comes to preserving flesh, or it comes to preserving bone, it's usually done by ash or soil that it's wet soil at first. It has a lot of microbes in it and everything that prevent the bacteria from tearing it down, and then that solidifies. So to some degree, and that doesn't, the mud and ash scenario doesn't happen that often unless you're talking about volcanic action or a mudslide or something like that. So, but everybody's seen the video of they stake the deer out,
Yeah,
and
I've seen that one.
and they put the camera on it and they watch it.
It's gone.
And 7 days go by, 8 days go by, 9 days go by, and there's like nothing there. 25 days later, you couldn't even see anything. That there was nothing, absolutely nothing left. And between the shrews and the mice and the squirrels and everything else that's after the calcium and anything that drags that carcass away or eats that meat, that flesh. But hornets and other stinging insects are big on removing portions of that, the meat and everything in that, because they want the sugar out of it. And
I have found a few bones over the years.
yeah,
About everything I found was a leg bone off a deer or something, but it was in water. But you couldn't see no bite marks on it. And as for hides, I've read a few reports of Bigfoot wearing hides or using hides in some way, like a deer skin or something like that.
right. But I find things out there and I do try to look at them, and then it's kind of, you see where everything else is chewed on it as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I've seen that.
you can't shoot a groundhog around here and the crows aren't on it 10 minutes later.
Well, we have
And-
buzzards here too, vultures.
Yeah, we've got them here too.
They
and,
really population of them's really exploded here as well.
Yeah, but we have a lot of crows and a lot of ravens, and they waste no time whatsoever.
They do their job, don't they?
Yeah, we've got a lot of fox here, and everybody does his job. They all get involved, and in some way, shape, or form, they're all performing some action of removal or cleansing.
So on the Bigfoot height, we'll say probably 10 to 13 foot, probably is roughly.
I would say so.
About max.
Yeah, I would
You
say
might have
so.
a few anomalies where they're bigger, but I'm like you. I say that's about right. Okay, how about this next question? This is something that affects us as people, as humans. How do you think age affects Bigfoot? I can't recall ever seeing a Bigfoot picture, anybody talking about a Bigfoot losing its hair and being bald or blind or anything like that. Do you think age affects Bigfoot in some ways?
No, just that picture that Harley Hoffman had, and boy, has he disappeared.
Yeah, he didn't want nothing to do with that. Yeah, that Bigfoot to me looked either old or sick or
Yeah. But that's the only one I've seen. So I don't know. Maybe where it's a where it's a primate, maybe it's taken care of or pampered to some degree if it's older, until it's just I don't want to, you get into chimpanzee activity and things like that, and they will pummel to death an older male or an older female, right down into the dirt, so that it's covered over. And I don't want to say that, okay, Bigfoot does something like that, but if the chimpanzee or a gorilla can, to some degree or another, perform some kind of a burial or some kind of a let's hide this action, then why can't a Bigfoot do something like that? So it's entirely possible that that they roll the half rotten log over the dead, or they push it down in the mud, or I don't know.
Well, Wendy was asking about their hair turning white, and I have heard of people who described it as not being a white Bigfoot, but as a dark Bigfoot whose hair has slowly turned gray. It would be black and gray together, kind of like we get as we get older. And I'd say that's very possible. Yeah, I shaved, but yeah. uh, and I would say that in some ways, I would say arthritis in their bones and their joints probably become wore like ours.
Yeah, we know that. We know all that's true. I mean, they're going to lose it. They're going to lose their eyesight to some degree.
Probably teeth.
They're going to lose their hearing. They're going to lose teeth. I mean, if you follow, um, any stories about, primates or anything like that. I posted one not that long ago where an elderly anthropologist was saying goodbye to an elderly chimpanzee that he had cared for 20 or 30 or 40 years ago when they were both young. And it was, it showed pictures of them when they were younger and pictures, and he's in his 70s and this chimpanzee is old. And he was saying he stayed right there with her until she passed away.
All the way.
But they were talking. The article was talking about all of the maladies and everything, the health issues that she had. She had lost her teeth. She couldn't see. Her hearing wasn't as good as it used to be. They had to feed her mush for, they had to grind everything up for her to feed her, and she had terrible arthritis and her knuckles were all swollen. And she'd lost a terrible amount of weight and everything too, just old age.
Well, yeah, I know as you get older, a lot of times you lose your teeth, and it does make it hard to eat. So I would say that Bigfoot suffers many of the same afflictions we do as we get older.
I would imagine so.
I got a question here from Brian. Wanted to know, what do I think these creatures are? Ape man, descendants of Nephilim. My opinion on that. My opinion, I'm pretty satisfied just to call them a primate.
Yeah.
If I had to go deeper than that, I would say there's probably some type of subhuman, not meaning below us necessarily, just meaning that there's another branch off of like a human, but not really a human as we know a human. So I don't necessarily think they're from the Nephilim or the fallen angels. I don't think they're a missing link or anything like that. I think they're their own species that was made at creation.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable just at this point calling them a primate.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that too.
I don't think they're a descendant of Gigantopithecus blacki or blackie, some people call it. I don't think we don't even have much evidence of Gigantopithecus. Just a few bone fragments and part of a bottom jaw, and the bone fragments are from all over the world, and they're just little bitty old crushed up things. We don't even have their interpretation of what it looked like is just like they do the dinosaurs. They find one bone and they draw the rest of it in, so we don't even really know what it looked like, to be honest.
Right, exactly.
So a lot of it, why I do like science, and I know there's a bug in here, and I know science can give us some answers. If they don't have the answer, they'll make sure they give you one most of the time. They have to fill in the blanks themselves.
That's right. What they may not fill in the blanks, but they'll provide all the dots, and you can make the connections.
Yeah, that's for sure. But maybe that's one of the reasons why I do like to research, and I have such interest. I want to learn more about these things, and what I've learned the last 30 years is that they're a whole lot like us in their appearance, in the things, some of the things they do as far as having family units and things they eat and stuff. They're a lot like us.
I agree with that. Education is a lifelong endeavor, and you pick certain subjects and stay with it, you'll always be learning.
Well, with the power of the internet, there's no reason for anyone to be ignorant on a subject anymore. You can research it for days. Of course, you have to filter through some of the bad information, but if you got decent reasoning power, you can do that.
I agree with that.
And I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'll go ahead and admit that too.
You do pretty good.
For a guy barely made it through high school and went a couple semesters of college. I do okay, I guess.
Yeah, you do pretty good.
This is a question I want to ask because I've never seen it. I know some people say they've seen it. I've never seen it. I don't know. I guess it's possible. You hear about, there's a little gnat in here. I've been trying to kill him. You hear about Bigfoot doing a spider crawl, where he's all spidered out, kind of like a spider crawling on the ground. I've never seen that. I'm not saying that don't do it. Maybe they do it. I don't know. What do you think about that? You think it's possible? Is that something a technique they use?
You know, I don't know. All I can say is his gym teacher must be torturous. Yeah, because I mean, you know, there's videos of, or there's reports of them doing the spider crawl or doing the, you know, the almost like the chimpanzee thing where they're swinging arms and legs and hauling butt. I've never seen any indication of that. First of all, I've never seen any knuckles on the ground. I'm not saying that that it doesn't happen. I've just never seen any knuckle prints anywhere or any handprints anywhere.
I have found handprints.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah, I have found handprint. One was in next to a creek. And when I first saw it, I thought, is that a bear track? Then I got to look and I said, it can't be a bear track. It's got a thumb.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it got down and got water is what I kind of thought it might have done.
I would expect that. I know their anatomy is different than ours. I don't know. Can I get down and do, what did we used to call that? The crab walk, where you used to make us do it in gym. You know, you used to.
I can't
lie on your back, and then you get up on your hands and your legs, and you do that crazy crap. You know, well, if they're doing the spider walk, it's the other way around.
We done something in football that was like that. What was it? I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called.
I had a hard time doing it back then. I know I couldn't do it now.
It just, yeah, it does. It's not conducive to our form, our anatomy. I'm not an expert on Bigfoot anatomy, but I just don't see that happening either. I mean, that's kind of crazy. I mean, that's kind of creepy. You know what I'm saying? When somebody's like, oh, crab walk to me, or get down and then spider walk to me, it's like, what are you? Are you a Bigfoot or are you a spider?
I don't like spiders. To me, that's one of the worst things about being in the mountains is running into all the spider webs. And I've been bit by spiders a lot over the years. I've not been bit this year, knock on wood, but used to. I get bit almost every time I went out. I got bit on the face a few times, but it never bothered me. But I seen some spiders today, you know, like big as a quarter. I'm making sure to get away. I look like one of them 13-year-old girls a slap fighting.
I've been nailed by brown recluse spiders 3 times, and man, I tell you, the flesh, you know, rotting in that little area where it was affected takes like a whole year to fill back in, you know, repair itself and fill back in. It's like, if I don't ever see another brown recluse, I'll be happy.
Well, you probably have to handle a lot of wood and things like that, so that's I like that.
We have, you know, we've got a lot of wolf spiders and things like that. And okay, so I'm a horse tender, and wherever there are horses, there are flies, and wherever there are flies, there are spiders.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of spiders in the barn, but they're much smaller. And you know, somebody says, "Get that spider out of here." I'm like, whack. Somebody says, "Get that daddy long legs out of here," and I'm picking it up and moving it. I don't know what's the difference between what I don't like spiders. I guess I've had too many incidents where I've had spiders on me or something like that and freaked out.
I don't like spiders.
Daddy long legs is like, you know, it's just because you can feel them when they're walking. You know?
I don't like spiders. I don't like ticks.
Oh no, you can keep ticks.
That's
This
just
year
part of
wasn't.
the
This year
territory,
wasn't
though.
bad for ticks up here.
Oh, it was
It's.
terrible. I got some
It's.
off of me today.
Did you? We haven't had them. It hadn't been too bad, but you got a lot more rain than we got too, I think.
Yeah, we have.
And so the season was, it dried out up here. And of course, that's it for them. If it's too wet, they don't like it. If it's too dry, they don't like it.
Well, today I had to walk through a bunch of about waist high, just weeds, where they take a dozer and run it and then just let the weeds grow up. Every kind of weed in the world. So ticks like those a lot of times. Not as bad like in the springtime. There's a lot more of them, but
They
I got
were.
one little tiny one off of me today, and then see what is today is Friday. Wednesday I got one off of me on the back of my neck. It was a pretty good sized tick, but I try to use that spray and all that kind of stuff. But the humidity and the heat and the time you go a couple miles through the mountains, all that's sweated off. So
Yeah.
I think I'm just
It's all
wasting
gone.
my money.
Yeah.
Talking about ticks, I'm starting to itch, man.
Exactly. We've put what is it, the permethrin spray that you put on the clothing.
Yeah, I got some of that. I put it on my boots and stuff every
Yeah.
spring, and it helped. But
Right.
I don't get much time out of my boots. Usually about one season. But now this boots I've got, my wife bought me for Christmas a couple years ago. I've got, I think, almost 3 seasons out of them. But the whole side's busted out of them now. I might have to buy me a new pair.
Right.
Them mountains are rough on them.
We get any more questions coming in?
No, I think that's it. And it turned out pretty good. We've got just a few minutes left in the show, so.
Oh my. Okay.
So we'll be in our time. We done good.
It went by very quick.
It did. Leo could have probably provided a lot of insight on those questions, but sometimes if your computer dies out, it's what can you do?
Yeah. And yep. But we did all right.
Yeah, we did okay for two old guys. Which I know you got a lot of stories, and I appreciate your help in
tons of them. But
not only doing the show, but also in your articles you've been writing for the website. If people have not read those, they need to go to thecryptocrew.com, and Stephen's wrote 2 or 3 articles on there that's very very interesting, things that he's experienced and stuff. So make sure to check those out.
Yeah, there's no end to it. I mean, you spend a lot of time out in the field, and there's just no end to what you learn and what you see, or and how you perceive it too. So,
right.
And some of the places that I've been, I can, like I was telling you, like Stacy Brown Jr., Stacy Brown Jr. I was in that area for quite a while because I lived in that area for like 5 years. And when they pronounce what we've got film footage on this in a FLIR, and I was like, oh wow, well let's see it, because does it look like what I saw? And it did. Yeah. That was the interesting thing. It did, and I was like, they are a peculiar looking critter in that area. They're not very large. They're man-sized,
But I think that throws people off a little bit because, like we were saying earlier, the Patty film, which is easily the most recognizable film, it leads people to believe that they're all gigantic and they all look like that, and it's just not true.
No, that's I think you're looking at something that's like humans or something that's even like dogs. They don't have to look alike to be a dog.
Still a dog, but
still, yeah. Your idea of a dog is might be a beagle. My idea of a dog might be a schnauzer or something.
Yeah. Well, I got Jack Russells and Feist. They're crossed up now, of course, but that's usually, years ago we kept hunting dogs, black and tan, and walkers and things like that. But now we keep the little yard dogs.
I like little dogs. The wife wants to go back to bigger dogs, and so we're probably looking at a king size version of of a
Well,
poodle.
I think I'm done with dogs after these guys here cash out on me.
Yeah.
One of them takes seizures real bad.
Oh no.
You have to give him medicine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
While I do, of course, I love my dogs, but man, it's hard to keep your yard maintained if you got two dogs digging holes.
Well, I don't have that. I'm glad that I just don't do that. We had one digging a hole one day because he was after a mouse.
Well, they do that too. They catch the ground moles.
Yeah. And, but he hasn't gone back to digging, which was good because I don't want to fill it in. And then he comes in, he's got mud all over himself.
Now these here used to dig really deep holes when they were
Yeah.
younger, but they've got a little bit older now. They don't dig as much.
Yeah.
But
That's what they did. That's why they bred them.
yeah.
So that they would go after the mice and the rats.
Oh man, if it moves, they're after it. I don't care if it's snake or whatever. I watched my old dog, one I was talking about earlier, didn't want to give up his position as the leader. I mean, I watched him kill a snake just like that, man. Now I didn't know what kind of snake it was. I could just see it from the porch.
Yeah.
And I was afraid it might be a venomous snake, a rattlesnake, because we get quite a few here in the yard and copperheads and things like that. And man, he was out there on it, grabbed it and broke its neck. In about 3 seconds, it was done.
Wow.
Just down and watched him run a rabbit down.
He's a champ.
I mean, they're champion dogs as far as chasing stuff.
Yeah, I've got one that is. He has a high prey drive, and so I have to. We've got to keep him on a leash when you go out. You can't. I mean, if a rabbit went by or a deer went by, I'd lose him. He'd be gone. I would not be able to call him back.
No, we got them two little deer yearly that come out here across the road and pick the grass. I've took a few pictures of them, put them on Facebook. Well, my dogs will go to the fence and they'll bark at them for a little while, and I open the door and I say, "Come on, guys, it's just deer," and then they'll come back to the porch.
Yeah.
But Stephen, I guess we'll wrap it up for tonight, brother. I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm sorry that Leo.
Always enjoy it. Always enjoy being with you guys. So.
And we always like to talk about
Bigfoot. All right.
And, but yeah, it's I appreciate you, man, for coming on, and appreciate your insight and your knowledge on
Thank you.
and your opinions. And I think it's been a good show. Sorry we had technical problems with Leo. Maybe we can get him on next time.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one
And
to have when we get him back. Maybe he can fill in some of his opinions then.
Yeah, he's had quite a few experiences and things, and
absolutely.
And I always like hearing what he has to say on the subject. And the thing is, while Leo or even your experience or my experience may vary a little bit, it mostly means that Bigfoot per region vary a little bit. Maybe their behavior, their customs, or whatever they do.
Yeah.
Vary by region.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But no bad luck. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow's Saturday, so yeah. And if not, I'll see you in a day or two.
All right. Take care, Thomas.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Bye.
See you later.
All right, guys. That's pretty much the end of the show for tonight. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, for the great questions we had and the interaction we had in the chat. Once again, I'm sorry that Leo, of course, couldn't be with us. His computer locked up on him, maybe even totally tore up on him, which we hope not. So think about him if you can, and maybe we can get him on next time. Before we go, I would like to play an advertisement. And if you can, help Leo out by purchasing his book. Here we go.
From Zombie Media Publishing comes the amazing true story of a Sasquatch investigator. The true story of how one researcher discovered a family of Sasquatch living in a remote area of the forest. Follow along as Leo Frank chronicles his journey from hopeful researcher to unbelievable, undeniable discovery. details that have never been told and could only be told by Leo himself. Filled with photos, trials, hardships, failures, and ultimately, success. Sasquatch Family Ties is wowing audience and receiving 5-star reviews. Stephen Kohler writes, Leo Frank's Sasquatch Family Ties is clear and convincing, simply a joy to read. M. Donald says, captivating, a generous and brave offering. You are sure to enjoy Leo Frank's Sasquatch Family Ties. Make sure to pick up your copy today. Now available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and ebook form. Sasquatch Family Ties is proudly published by Zombie Media Publishing.
All right, guys. Help Leo out there. Get a hold of his book. Yeah, great. It's a good book. It's very informative. Got quite a few pictures and stuff in it. And it's not very expensive, really, considering the information. But again, I thank you guys for tuning in. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. And make sure to visit our website at thecryptocrew.com. And you can find all of our social media links on there as well. But you guys be good. It'll probably be sometime maybe next week before we can have a show. I got a birthday coming up Sunday. I turned the big whopping 53-year-old, so I'm becoming an old man. But hopefully we'll get out and do a few things, and we're still going to try to stay active all the way up into our really, really old days. But I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will see you next time.